بر محمد وآل Muhammad صلوات Allahumma salli ala Muhammad and وآل Muhammad. Inshallah, we're starting tonight's program with recitation of Holy Quran. بر محمد وآل Muhammad صلوات Allahumma salli ala Muhammad and وآل Muhammad. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. صلوات اللهم صل على محمد. Is Sister Naila Fatima here? Naila is here? Okay. I'm requesting Sister Naila to please recite her poetry. No. Okay, yeah. Naila Fatima Ali was supposed to recite. Okay, inshallah. Okay, so we'll probably wait for her. Requesting Brother Ayan to please come and recite his salam. Bar Muhammad wa ali Muhammad salawat Allah.
بر محمد و آل محمد صلوات. اے باد صبا جا کے یہ اموں کو بتانا، پیاسی ہے سکینہ. اے باد صبا جا کے یہ اموں کو بتانا، پیاسی ہے سکینہ. اس چھوٹے سے سن میں یہ ستم میں نے اٹھائے، اللہ کسی کو نہ یتیم ایسا بنائے. خود اپنے لہو میں کوئی بچی نہ نہائے، میں تم کو بلاتی رہی تم بھی تو نہ آئے. میں بن گئی بعد عصر لعینوں کا نشانہ، پیاسی ہے سکینہ. اے باد صبا جا کے یہ اموں کو بتانا، پیاسی ہے سکینہ. پانی کی طلب مجھ کو کھلاتی رہی ٹھوکر، کہتا تھا لئیں دوں میں فوجوں کو پلا کر. جب شمر لئیں کر چکا سیراب یہ لشکر، دکھلا کے مجھے پھینک دیا پانی زمیں پر. تب سمجھی میں کیا ہوتا ہے امید دلانا، پیاسی ہے سکینہ، اے باد صبا جا کے یہ اموں کو بتانا، پیاسی ہے سکینہ، ایک جام ہوا شام غریباں میں میسر، وہ کوزہ میں رکھ آئی تھی اصغر کی لحد پر، تھا مجھ سے بھی چھوٹا میرا بھیا میرا دلبر، شرمندہ میں ہو جاتی چچا پیاس بجھا کر، اب اپنے ہی ہاتھوں سے میری پیاس بجھانا، پیاسی ہے سکینہ، اے باد صبا جا کے یہ اموں کو بتانا، پیاسی ہے سکینہ، ایک رسی میں ہم سب کے گلے باندھ کے ادا کرتے ہوئے تشہیر چلے جانب کوفہ، اور اس پہ مصیبت یہ تھی قد چھوٹا تھا میرا، اٹھتی تھی جو پپیا تو گلا کھنچتا تھا میرا، گردن کے میرے زخم چچا دیکھنے آنا، پیاسی ہے سکینہ، اے باد صبا جا کے یہ اموں کو بتانا، پیاسی ہے سکینہ، جس روز سے اصغر کو ملا بابا کا سینہ، اس روز سے اموں نہیں سو پائی سکینہ، کس حال میں جاؤں گی میں کس طرح مدینہ، آ جائے مجھے موت ہے کس کام کا جینا، جاگی ہوں بہت آ کے چچا مجھ کو سلانا، پیاسی ہے سکینہ، گھر لوٹ کے جاتے ہیں ہر ایک شام پرندے، قسمت میں لکھے ہیں میری زندہ کے اندھیرے، کب تک میں جیوں گی یوں ہی اشکوں کے سہارے، لگتا ہے کہ مر جاؤ گی اب دور وطن سے، ہوگا نہ میسر مجھے گھر لوٹ کے جانا، پیاسی ہے سکینہ اے باد صبا، جا کے یہ اموں کو بتانا، پیاسی ہے سکینہ۔ بر محمد وآل محمد صلوات۔
Jazakallah. Now I invite Brother Hassan Nayani for salam with a loud salawat.
خون سے چراغ دین جلایا حسین نے، خون سے چراغ دین جلایا حسین نے، خون سے چراغ دین جلایا حسین نے، رسم وفا کو خوب نبھایا حسین نے، رسم وفا کو خوب نبھایا حسین نے، اور سب کچھ خدا کی راہ میں قربان کر دیا، سب کچھ خدا کی راہ میں قربان کر دیا، اصغر سا پھول بھی نہ بچایا حسین نے، اصغر سا پھول بھی نہ بچایا حسین نے، اور ایسی نماز کون پڑھے گا جہاں میں، ایسی نماز کون پڑھے گا جہان میں، سجدہ کیا تو سر نہ اٹھایا حسین نے، سجدہ کیا تو سر نہ اٹھایا حسین نے، خون سے چراغ دین جلایا حسین نے، بر محمد وآل محمد صلوات۔ جو چین سے سوتی تھی بہت روئیں گی آنکھیں، جو چین سے سوتی تھی بہت روئیں گی آنکھیں، جو چین سے سوتی تھی بہت روئیں گی آنکھیں، شیخ کرتے ہوئے نوحہ چلے جاتے تھے رن کو، یہ کس نے کیا قتل میرے تش نہ دہن کو عباس تیری یاد جو آئے گی بہن کو اشکوں کی جگہ خون سے منہ دھوئیں گی آنکھیں جو چین سے سوتی تھی بہت روئیں گی آنکھیں عباس کے مرنے پہ تھے زینب کے یہ نالے آتا ہے تیرا بھائی کمر اپنی جھکائے غازی کہ کوئی دستے بریداں تو اٹھا لے ورنہ جو بصارت ہے انہیں کھوئیں گی آنکھیں جو چین سے سوتی تھی بہت روئیں گی آنکھیں وہ رن میں علمدار تیرے ہاتھوں کا کٹنا وہ تیرے ستمگار سے مشکیز کچدنا وہ مشک سے عباس تیرے خون کا بہنا ان بار مناظر کو صدا دھوئیں گی آنکھیں جو چین سے سوتی تھی بہت روئیں گی آنکھیں بر محمد وال محمد صلوات
Jazakallah, Brother Nayani. I'm now going to invite, inshallah, Sister Naila for recitation.
Salawat. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. The suffering of Lady Kulthum. When the Sayyid women came into the markets of Sham, they brought the sand from the deserts on their hair rather than their veil. Poor Kulthum's gaze fell upon Abbas. By that time, Abbas had thrown his head from the spear onto the desert sands. There is a scared look on Kulthum's face, that her gaze should not fall upon him. Abbas's head won't stay up on the spear. What more pain can this loyal servant face than to see those ladies' hair when he had protected their veil? O people of Sham, where is your guilt? Abbas's head won't stay up on the spear. When Sakina fell to the ground in utter disbelief, her auntie said, "Look at this bond between uncle and niece. Oh my Khuda, this poor little girl lies broken-hearted in the sand." Abbas's head won't stay up on the spear. The people of Sham have made a spectacle of themselves, along with the Sayyid ladies, homeless and with their open hair. Where do they find any support? All of Allah's creations cry tear and blood for them. Abbas's head won't stay up on the spear. Throw the sand in the air to create a veil for them. This was the cry of Zainab that was heard throughout the land. The sky and the ground cried and said, Abbas's head won't stay up on the spear. Oh, those of you who grieve for them, Ali's daughter was open-haired in the markets of Sham. When his head fell to the ground, the people were surprised. The evil man asked Abid, "Tell us why Abbas's head won't stay up on the spear." Sometimes it's Layla, sometimes it's Farwa, sometimes it's Kulthum, who weeps uncontrollably. Hiding her face with her hair, Zainab cried and said, "Mother, look at these scenes of sadness and pain." Abbas's head won't stay up on the spear. Abbas's head won't stay up on the spear. Abbas's head won't stay up on the spear. Salawat.
Jazakallah, Sister Naila. Very good. Thank you, alhamdulillah, for that recitation. Inshallah, before I invite Shaykh Mahdi Mohammadpour to the member for the final series of his speech tonight, I wanted to say personally from the youth, from the community, from everybody here, everybody online, anybody who tuned in, thank you so much for benefiting us with your presence and your knowledge. So, Jazakallah, and thank you. May Imam Hussein and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept your azah. Wanted to make a quick announcement, just that today after the program, after Salath, we will have a quick 30-minute question and answer session with Shaykh as well. So I just wanted to throw that out there. Hopefully won't run too long. And lastly, I just wanted to recite the names of the sponsors of tonight's program for the Surah Fatiha. Please recite Surah Fatiha for all beloved marhumin, Brother Askari and Sister Narjis Hussain and family, marhumin of Brother Fazil, Mirali, Nathani, and Panju families, Banda Khuda B, Ahmed Ali, and Husnain Qasim Ali, Banda Khuda F, Sister Surya Begum, Sayyid Sibta Haider Bilgrimi, Murtaza Bilgrimi and family, marhumin of Ghazi and Hakim family, marhumin of Jafri and Rizvi families, Brother Kumail and Sister Anaman family, Rajab Ali Matani, Ghalam Hussain, Sakina Bil Bint Manji, Hussain Ali Nanse, Amir Ali Gulami, family of Yasmin Merchant, Brother Qasim and Sister Sajween Saeed and family, Brother Shabin Naqvi and Sister Selina Ghazmi and family, Dr. Imtiaz and family, Brother Zishan Naqvi and Sister Hana Rahi and family, and Brother An Ali and family. Surah Fatiha, please. And with the loud salawat, please help me invite Shaykh Mahdi to the member. Salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad.
Yes. So, thank you. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة على رسول الله وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين وأصحابه المنتجبين سيما بقية الله في الأرضين عجل الله تعالى فرجه الشريف ولعنة الله على أعدائهم أجمعين إلى قيام يوم الدين. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. اللهم كل وليك الحجة ابن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرضك توعا وتمتعه فيها طويلا. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين. السلام عليك يا أبا صالح المهدي عجل الله تعالى فرجه الشريف. صلوات على محمد وآل محمد. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen for this opportunity to gather over these 10 and 11 nights in the commemoration, the remembrance, and the reverence that we have for Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam, his loyal companions, his beloved family, not only as followers of a particular legal or theological background, but really as a Quranic injunction to express that love to the Ahlul Bayt as one of the only requests that the Quran makes of his community. And over these 10 and 11 nights, we've explored what it means to build and develop a Husseini community, drawing from the Imam's own words in trying to restore or reform the notion of prophetic community as it was established and as it was practiced in the time of his beloved grandfather, peace and blessings be upon him. So what we've done really so far is we have laid a basic groundwork to some of the important facets that we must consider when we are aspiring towards building a community. What was central to us is to understand community as a coming together of individuals who may share ideals, principles, a background, but ultimately all of those are united in the care that we have for each other's welfare. Now I want to express my gratitude for the patience, for the hospitality, for the welcoming of not just me personally, but also of this topic. I understand that it may have been a bit demanding. At times it may have been abstract. It may be untraditional. But I want to say how appreciative I am of the engagement that I've had so far with members of the community, the feedback that has been given, but ultimately the receptivity. I just want to say how much I value that, and I want to thank you for putting up with this presentation, with its inefficiencies, with its shortcomings, and with its mistakes. If anything that was said that was incorrect, may Allah forgive me, may you all forgive me. If there was anything that was said that hurt anyone, that mischaracterized anything, that was certainly not my intention. I take responsibility and I ask for your forgiveness. I want to inshallah make 2 points tonight. One will be more of a wrap-up point. And before I do that, I want to conclude a facet that we opened up on the night of Ashura, and that is when it comes to building relationships with one another. Of course, there will be challenges. Sometimes we have to react to these challenges appropriately, but there are times that we can get ahead before these challenges present themselves. So this is more of a proactive approach that we can take in trying to support this notion in search of community. So one of those things, as we mentioned on the night of Ashura, is to help people see the potential in themselves because of the difficulties that we have in life, a lot of times we deny ourselves the potentials and the opportunities that we have, the role that we can play, the contribution that we can make to the world and to our community. Tonight I want to say why it's important to keep that positivity up and how can we do that. One of the very clear instructions that we have in our tradition is, if you want to build a group of people that are in good spirits, you must ensure that their efforts are acknowledged and are appreciated. And I want to share two accounts that Imam Ali alayhi salatu wasalam gives to Malik al-Ashtar. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. So we know these admonishments, instructions that the Imam gives to Malik to be invaluable. They serve as an example of what it means to engage in caring for one's community, or if we want to call it in modern terms, statecraft. This is what the Imam tells Malik on two occasions, or at least in two parts of his instruction. With all of the negativity that surrounds us in the world, Imam says, وَوَاصِلْ فِي حُثْنِ الثَّنَاءِ عَلَيْهِمْ. Says, Malik, you as their leader, you in a position of power, you in a position of influence, be broad-minded with regards to their desires, their needs, their wants, their requests. And be continuous in the praise that you give them. We're needy people by nature. Quran speaks about this. Sometimes it censures, but just the nature that we are, we thrive on recognition. Because again, recognition itself is one side of the care that we have for one another. If I don't care for you, there's no need to recognize you. I recognize you if I have a personal need, and through that recognition, I hope to win your favor. But recognition, not for my own sake, but for your sake, is a sign of caring for each other's well-being. Imam says, don't just look at how you can praise people and appreciate them to serve some political bottom line. We have this effort going, look at the successes that we've made. Those are good things. You should have metrics. You should have performance indicators in the building of your community and the services that you provide. It's not denying that. But don't only wait for some end of the year report to look at the good that has been done and to publish it in some report. Be continuous in the praise that you give people. وَتَعْدِيدِ مَا أَبْلَى ذَوُ الْبَلَاءِ مِنْهُمْ. And recount the good deeds of those who have shown such deeds. Why? فَإِنَّ كَثْرَةَ الذِّكْرِ لِحُسْنِ أَفْعَالِهِمْ تَهُزُّ الشُّجَاعِ. If your praising of them and encouragement of them and acknowledgement of them is continuous, then that will shake the brave, it will bring to life the brave, وَتُحَرِّضُ النَّاكِلِ, and it'll arouse the weak, insha'Allah. See, the most valuable asset that we have is the human capital. We can have all the money in the world, but if we as a people are not committed, if we are not convinced, if we don't feel positive about the work that we're doing, that money will burn, it'll be wasted, and it will lead to division and destruction. Now remember, because our discussion is not focused on one group from amongst the community. Yes, for younger people, there may be a higher sensitivity here. Remember, we spoke about being in a relationship with our children. The only time we should interact with our children is not when they've done something wrong and we bring it to their attention. You know, those of you who have small children, because children are so impressionable, if the only time you're interacting with your child is to say no, what does the child understand psychologically is your role? Someone who restricts, someone who limits. Now, when they get to the phase where they're trying to figure out who they are in life, they naturally see you as not as a companion, not as a supporter, as a what? As a restrictor. So they move away from you. You know that perennial question, why does my teenage kid not want to talk to me? This is one of the reasons, because that's the way that we presented ourselves, potentially. I'm not saying all of us are like this. Maybe I'm projecting right now. But with our children, if from the beginning, the focus is more so on their accomplishments and acknowledging that, what does the child see you as? Not a cheerleader, but they see you as someone who supports them and takes notice of them. The Imam says, look, you have a lot of really good potential here. But if you're so consumed with solving the problems and you lose focus on acknowledging the people, then the people will lose sight of how important and valuable they are. And they get busy with other things in life. You see? It's something about the morale that's really important here in community building. We have to engage in the larger activity of giving morale. Now you may say, the leader takes the prominent role. Fine. Fine. But remember, the peers at times, and I would argue most times, have a bigger impact on establishing the quality of the work and the value that each member provides to each other. Because the leader, in certain times, can kind of make a grand impression, but the day-to-day is when brother and sister interacts with one another. So you'll have more interactions with your brother and sister than you will have generally with your leadership. So we shouldn't restrict that to just that. The Imam is telling Malik, first of all, remember, praise them. Now, it is for us in our journey of community building to look for ways to acknowledge each other. Now, what are the things that we value that are worthy of acknowledgement? That's not a question we talked about. Maybe it's for another series of lectures or ashra, but alhamdulillah, you all are more intelligent than I am. It's something that you can explore if you haven't already. Those will be reflective of the values that the community has. So I'll give you an example. If one of your younger people gets accepted to a prestigious school and the community as a whole finds that valuable, they should be acknowledged, they should be recognized, and the community collectively should celebrate that accomplishment. Now, if that is the only valuable thing that they find, obviously what they're doing is they are denying the rest of the community who may have an accomplishment but doesn't fall within this rigid category of acknowledgement. You're not good enough. So see, there are certain implications now. So again, my role here, my contribution was not to outline these. I would hope the community starts thinking about how can I acknowledge and recognize my children, my brother, and my sister on a regular basis. That's tough. Because do we do things that are recognizable or worthy of acknowledgement on a daily basis? Something to think about. Next, the Imam says, ثُمَّ أَعْرِفْ لِكُلِّ امْرِئٍ مِّنْهُمْ مَا أَبْلَى. Appreciate the performance of each of them. So you have amongst your younger people, let's say 5%, 10% that really perform at those levels that are kind of comparable on a national stage. Wonderful, fantastic. Everyone has something in their life that's worthy of acknowledgement. Find it. وَلَا تَذْمُنَنَّ بَلَاءَ امْرِئٍ إِلَى غَيْرِهِ. Do not attribute the performance of one of them to the other. So this has a number of different facets. One of them is the comparison. Don't play the comparison game. Don't play the comparison game. I know we think it can be a motivator. Look at so-and-so, what they're doing. You can do it too. You know what that's also saying? What remains unsaid is, what's wrong with you? And it may even come from a place of frustration as a parent because they say, I feel like I provided everything that this other person was provided, yet you failed to perform. Remember we were talking about finding purpose? Remember we were talking about self-esteem? These are potentially the ways that we want to do good. The intention is good, but we may end up lowering morale, destroying morale. So the Imam says, don't attribute one thing to another. Now, even in failures, one person may have had a failure. Don't extend that to someone that it doesn't relate to. Yes, we have communal failures, no problem. Some things we say, wajib kifai. Everyone is responsible. If it doesn't get done, everyone is accountable. Okay. But there are certain failures that may be a little bit more focused. I should have done something and I didn't. You're not allowed to get Shaykh Mahdi, the better Shaykh Mahdi, when he comes back and says, why are things like this? Why is it his fault? It's my fault. Don't attribute something that I did to him. Again, sometimes in looking for where to, direct our frustrations, our emotions, we have to get it out. We don't know what the suitable outlet is. We may engage in what we call friendly fire. That's dangerous too. Friendly fire is dangerous, and it happens. وَلَا تُقْصِرَنَّ بِهِ دُونَ غَايَةَ بَلَائِهِ. Do not minimize the reward below the level of the performance. Look, a management strategy that doesn't work is to constantly berate your workers with this intention that if I tell them they did a good job, then they'll feel too good about themselves. Let me tell them that they can do better, so they do better. What kind of a twisted mentality is that? Who wants to work harder for someone who doesn't appreciate the work that they put in right now? Listen, everyone is intelligent enough to understand there's always room for growth. If your way of trying to, bring to light this truism is through constantly berating and belittling the person, there's something wrong there. Now, again, you may not know better. I may not know better. That's the management style that I learned. That's the parenting style that I learned. That's the way I was raised. If you can get an A+ and you just got an A, for some of the parents, they ask, what happened to those 3-4 points? Right? They start scapegoating. Oh, see, I told you were playing games that night, and I told you not to, so you could have got those 3 points, and the A+. And then if you got A+, then this, and the whole life becomes ruined because those 3 points were lost. Relax. Look, in life, if we just pass, most of us will be happy. We're looking for a passing grade in life, right? The dua that we make. Oh Allah, allow me not to die except in a state of Islam. That's a passing grade ask. وَلَا تَمُوتُنَّ إِلَّا وَأَنْتُمْ مُسْلِمُونَ. Okay. Now you say, brother, we're higher. Good, that's fine. We can aspire higher. But remember, sometimes even the passing grade is admirable. Recognize that, acknowledge that, appreciate that. وَلَا يَدْعُوَنَّكَ شَرْفُ امْرِئٍ إِلَىٰ أَن تُعْدِمَ مِنْ بَلَائِهِ مَا كَانَ صَغِيرًا. The high position of an individual should not lead you to regard his small deeds as big. Don't play favorites. Just because I'm some big shot doesn't make the small thing that I did the greatest thing in the world. Personal example, if I bend over and pick up one piece of trash, everyone should go, wow. Like this guy picked up trash. Wow. No. So what? I should pick up more trash. Just because this person is this, and that. And we want to respect. Listen, we want to respect. That's not the point of belittle someone. You're an accomplished person, but I'm going to make you small so everyone's equal. No. But again, we're talking about relationship building. Sometimes a person's in a certain position, and by virtue of that position, even the basic things that they do becomes a big deal. وَلَا ذَعَةُ امْرِئٍ إِلَىٰ أَن تستصغر من بلائه ما كان عظيما. Again, the opposite of the inverse is also true. Just because someone may be of a lower position, if they do something great, don't limit it because they are higher on this hierarchy. So, increasing that positivity, that attitude, that drive, that hope comes from a constant and a warranted acknowledgement and appreciation. It is for us to brainstorm how to make that happen. And what speaks to us first, based on our local needs and circumstances. And second, those things that also correspond to what the prophetic community and the Husseini community looks like. Risala salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. There are 2 points that I'm going to make related to this increasing of positivity and building hope. These are, again, reserved, inshallah, for another time. Hopefully someone more experienced and more knowledgeable and I can come and open these up. But these are just points being made in passing that are worthy of attention and a lot of attention. Because, again, they seem to be underdeveloped. I promise if I have the opportunity to come here again and I feel like the time is appropriate, I will expand on these points. The first point, again, in increasing the positivity, but at an institutional level. See, we want to impart the values that we have with one another, and we want to express the care that we will have with one another as frequently as possible. One of the ways that we've been instructed in doing that is constant, what? Constant interaction, presence. Presence. Especially for younger people who are impressionable and are in the stage of building their sense of identity and their worldview. How can we increase the notion of presence of members of their community towards this goal of what? Building relationship and building positivity. Now, this may be a little too abstract. I'm going to make a proposal. I'm going to give a suggestion. See, when I want myself or my child to be raised as a part of a community where people care about one another, and I trust in the interactions, the values that are going to be imparted, I have to look for people that are members of this community, and I want to put my child with them to interact with them as much as I can. One way to do that is to bring them to the masjid. Alhamdulillah. And we hope that our presence in the masjid will continue to increase. That is an aspiration that we have, and it should be part of the Husseini community. Inshallah, we can get to the point, not just 5 daily prayers are done here, but we as members of the community can participate as much as we can. That's an aspiration and a goal, and it should be. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. But the Quran, Ahlul Bayt say, listen, the more you spend time with accomplished people, the more their positivity and their accomplishments will also rub off on you. Ya ayyuhal ladhina amanu ittaqullah wa kunu ma'as sadiqin. Practice taqwa of Allah and be with the truthful. It doesn't say be amongst the truthful. It says be with them. Spend time with them. Be in their presence. Now, who are the truthful? Say Ahlul Bayt. Prophet, fine. But there's also other levels. There are people who have developed within the community that have arrived at that stage of the truthful ones. The truthful ones means you can trust what they're saying and what they're doing are the same. Now, if I want to give my kid over to someone to watch them, to care for them, to teach them, I would hope that they're a truthful individual, because what they say they're going to teach, what they say they're going to do better be the same as what they actually do, because I'm not there. So there's an element of trust that needs to be there. How can we increase this? The institutional answer, without a doubt, one of them is through education, and it is through full-time schooling. You will never be able to maximize the potential of building community without an Islamically inspired school. It's not going to happen. Now, this is not to be dismissive of warranted concerns. And this is what I said, a promise, inshallah, that we will explore with a little bit more detail, inshallah, if the future allows. But this is my strong conviction, and I would welcome a constructive conversation revolving around this. There's only so much time that we have in building of community. This is napkin math here, okay? Let's say your kid goes to a full-time school. They're going to spend anywhere from 7 to 8 hours, okay? Depending on how far you live away, let's say you spend half an hour to commute. Your child, of course, has to sleep 8 hours too, right? So that's almost 16 and a half hours, let's say 17 hours. For whatever reason, they also have more work to do outside of school. Let's say they spend another hour too. That's how much? 18 hours, okay? They have to have some recreation, an hour or two a day, right? We're getting close to 20 hours now. And the 4 hours, we have to spend 1 or 2 hours a day just kind of doing nothing. What am I doing? I'm daydreaming. What am I doing? I'm using the restroom. What am I doing? I'm showering. What am I doing? I'm laundry. What am I doing? And there should at least be 1 or 2 hours with the family too, right? So that's your 24 hours. So when is the time that the child is supposed to be spending with other members of the community that are meant to impart those same values and build a relationship to the point that they trust them and they are convinced that they care about each other's welfares? They see them enough that they can not only observe their accomplishments and recognize it, but they can also observe shortcomings and work on addressing them. When is that supposed to happen? I have deep respect for any educational institution, any educational initiative that is helping impart those values. But my argument in a nutshell is this, and inshallah, like I said, in a later time we will discuss it. A Saturday or Sunday school model just cannot compensate for what we need in building community. You can present an argument that may be correct in that we can impart the conceptual knowledge in one day. I won't argue with that. Your children are incredibly intelligent. In 3 hours, they can get something that takes other kids 6 hours. The point is not conceptual imparting. It is the building of relationship. Can you build a relationship with someone on 1 hour a week? On 2 hours a week? You can't. It takes time. The school becomes an invaluable path to make that happen. Like I said, there are questions that come with it. We need to take this seriously. Not because we're losing our children. No, none of that. There's an opportunity to be seized here. Imagine now you had an opportunity for your children to spend 8 hours of the day with people who believe in the same things you believe in. And not just that, but they are committed to the idea of community. That means they care for the welfare of your child and they care for your welfare as you do theirs. That's a completely different thing from a school that understands Islamic education as secular curriculum, sprinkling Quran, and Islamic studies. They're not the same thing. And again, like I'm saying, this is not a criticism of anyone, but I say this in passing. No Muslim school that has community at the core can have a significant non-Muslim staff. It's not going to happen. How can that person be a part of the community? They don't even have the buy-in on the values. They don't even have the buy-in on the ideology. They don't even have the buy-in on the worldview. Then you expect without that to compensate and to care for the welfare of the child? It's completely irrational. The struggle here is to limit some of these contradictions. So spending time with people. They say, you want to feel spiritually high and positive? Go spend time with people who've worked on themselves. There's a reason why they say spending time with ulama, true ulama that have worked on themselves. Gazing at their faces may count as ibadah. That's why they go spend time with them. Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam, just looking at them is a type of ibadah. It's not ibadah like you're racking up points. You will be drawn into what it is that they're inviting you to, right? Istajibu lillahi wa rasul idha da'atum lima yuhyikum. When they're calling you to something that enlivens you, respond to their call, their invitation. So we're trying to increase the positivity, build an environment that allows your children to strive. Imam al-Baqir alayhi salatu wasalam has been narrated to have said, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Ya Aba Hamza, يخرج أحدكم فراسخ فيطلب لنفسه دليلا. One of you goes out to travel 1 farsakh. A farsakh is like what? It's a few kilometers, short distance. You take a dalil. Dalil means a guide. You take your phone, you put a GPS, you get direction, something. Otherwise you'll get lost, you'll be perplexed, even if it's a short distance. وأنت بطرق السماء أجهل منك بطرق الأرض. And yet, your ability to navigate the path, the journey of the heavens is much less than your ability to navigate the paths of this earth. فَاطْلُبْ لِنَفْسِكَ دَلِيلًا. So find for yourself a guide. This is the same thing that we're saying. We're saying we want to find a way, a guide, a system that allows our children to be convinced and for them to buy into this notion of community. We have to take it as seriously as we do when we construct solutions for everyday problems. It's just something to think about. Inshallah, if the time permits in a later opportunity, we'll discuss them. And the last point that I'll make, because we're just about to wrap up on time. Sometimes in our pursuits in building, establishing community, we may find ourselves frustrated because we're really passionate about it, but others are not. I'm at a point in my life that I really believe this is something that I need. My family needs it. My children need it. My grandchildren need it. For those of you whose children are not even in college yet, you may be doing things for your grandchildren, right? Remember how quickly your kids grew up? Nothing's going to change in that nature. Your grandchildren will grow up just as quickly. You may feel frustrated. Brother, sister, we want to get something going. People are busy with other things. Sometimes they believe, sometimes they don't. Sometimes they're committed, sometimes they're not. Or the struggles of their life are too much. The distractions are too much. We may feel like the support we need to receive is not there. Let me end with this story. It's a Quranic story of one of the ashab of the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, by the name of Zayd ibn Arqam. Zayd is a famous companion, and he's a young man. When the Muslimin, with the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, were returning from one of the battles, one of the ghazawat. This is after the migration to Medina, so obviously, at least socially, we have this dichotomy of Muhajir and Ansar, right? Muhajir are those who emigrated. Ansar are the ones who supported. So in the building of community, some of them received those who had emigrated to come. There was, of course, tension there. Like we said, the prophetic community was full of tensions. You have a Muhajir, just like a refugee, displaced, coming to a new, and then you had a group of people that were welcoming them. Not that they had the resources for double, no. They had a home, they're going to make it work with another family. They had food, they were going to make it work with another family. So naturally there are tensions from time to time. Anyways, as they were returning, they arrive at a well. People are tired, thirsty, exhausted. It's so hot. It's hot like it is here even more. So people are trying to get water from the well. 2 people at the same time threw a bucket in. And they were trying to pull the water out. Naturally, because there's not enough space, the 2 buckets got tangled. And it just so happens that one of them that threw the bucket was from Muhajir, one that threw him was from Ansar. So a scuffle ensued. Got upset. What are you doing? I threw mine in. Oh, no, it's my turn. I'm more thirstier than you. All that stuff. Amongst them were also some opportunists, some munafiqeen. Just someone that's something off, something wrong with them. They found an opportunity. So they went to the Ansar and said, look at these Muhajirun. Look, we did everything for them, and yet they don't even have the decency. They don't even have the respect to ask for forgiveness or just say, you go for nothing, just so entitled. And the guy heard them say, you're right. Sometimes the rhetoric, it works, right? It works. And it's just as a tangent, be careful on how you engage and what you see on social media. There's someone other than myself that has a better, just don't Everything that you take in, please process it. Have a filter or something. Don't just believe everything that you get and then let it excite you or upset you or whatever. Anyways. So the Ansar said, you're right. So they started to fight with one another. And this munafiq was just like, ooh, perfect. Zayd ibn Arqam was there, he observed. During this scuffle, this munafiq said, when we get back to Medina, we as the Ansar, who are the honored and dignified ones, are going to kick out these ingrates. The Quran renders it this way. لا يخرجن العز منها الأذل. أعز, honored, dignified. أذل, lowly. Speaking to who? The Prophet that brought all of these muhajir, these immigrants, these displaced people. We're going to kick them out. So Zayd heard this. He rushed to the Prophet. He says, there's chaos happening here. You have to come and stop it. So the Prophet quickly rushed to the scene to try and defuse the situation. When he arrives, he said, what's going on? This is what I've heard. And Zayd, remember, he's a young boy. This munafiq, Abdullah ibn Ubay, he says, no, I didn't say such a thing. And his friends were, of course, around him. What can you do in life without friends? His friends said, oh, he's lying. You never said that. Okay. So there was a decision to be made. Was Zayd lying? Didn't his dignity deserve to be honored and protected? Especially because he's a younger person. The Prophet was adamant on making sure that the young were acknowledged, even if it bothered and kind of it made some of the elderly people who were so entrenched in the ways, eat them alive. Anyways, the Prophet said, everyone pack up, we're leaving. They had kind of set up camp. We're leaving. Everyone's exhausted, doesn't want to do that. They continue to the point of exhaustion. We're going to make it back to Medina. So they go all the way back to Medina, exhausted. Zayd goes home and he's upset. He's a little what? He's frustrated. He was let down. Because look, the Prophet knows that he's an honest person. He observed something that was happening. He tried to bring it to the attention and nothing was done. So the son of this munafiq, Abdullah ibn Ubay, who was a believing person, came to the Prophet and said, I was there too. I heard my Prophet said this. He's a munafiq. I know he is. And he even asked, let me deal with him. The Prophet said, no, you don't need to do that. When all of this was happening, before even the Prophet came out to make a public declaration, this ayah from the Quran was revealed. The ayah of the Quran was revealed that for those people who say, when we return, we shall expel those lower class, know that Allah, His support remains with the Prophet and the Mu'mineen. So the Prophet, of course, cared for Zayd and supports Zayd and would defend Zayd. But it even comes to the point that Allah will defend those who care for the wealth and the health of the community. There may be times that you will feel let down by people that you trust. They may see the situation calling for something different. You may think it's a time for a confrontation. They may think it's a time for silence. Now, granted, none of your leaders are going to be the Prophet. None of your members in positions of authority are going to be infallible, very learned, wise. No, they're just from amongst you. But sometimes the way things work out, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants us to, again, we said accommodate, even though you may feel dejected, frustrated, let down. Allah will make things right. Just persevere. Allah will never allow for a mu'min who believes in good and does good for their efforts to be wasted. It's just in the process of building community, sometimes things don't work out the way that we want, but eventually the end is always the same because the victory for the mu'mineen, the Muslim community, is guaranteed. Risala salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. With that, I end my reflections, my thoughts, my presentations. Again, Allah bless you for listening. And ultimately, like I said, this was simply an invitation to something. It wasn't exhaustive by no stretch of the imagination. There's so many things that still need to be discussed that we haven't. But all it was an invitation. Just as the approach of Imam Hussein alayhi salam was just to provide an invitation to the people. It was just an invitation. So we hope at this point what we take away really is a newfound sense of purpose in trying to figure out what community looks like for us. And to couple that with our sense of purpose as Muslims, not as something that is extra, not as something that is ideal if it's there, not something that is mustahab. It is more wajib than any wajib that we have. It is the crux of what it means to be Muslim, right? Because as we said, the Imam revived all of the a'mal through this notion of community. Because everyone prayed on the day of Ashura, but the prayers were oriented towards two different ways of living life. Sallallahu alayhi ya Aba Abdullah. And dim the lights for a few minutes of musibah. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بفنائك عليكم مني جميعا سلام الله أبدا ما بقيت وبقي الليل والنهار ولا جعله الله آخر العهد منا لزيارتكم السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين مدينة جدنا لا تقبلينا فبالحسرات والأحزان جئنا. From now, the next chapter of the journey of Ahlul Bayt begins as they left Medina and as they journey from place to place, from Kufa to Sham, and returning to Medina, they have a story to tell. When they return to Medina, what story are they telling? O city of our grandfather, do not accept us. Why? We've returned different than when we left. Because we've returned with grief, sorrow, pain, distress. ألا فأخبر رسول الله عنا بأننا قد فجعنا في أبينا. Medina informed the Prophet that we have been shook by the loss of our father. وأن رجالنا بالطف سرعا بلا رؤوس وقد ذبحوا البنينا. Informed that same Prophet that his nation severed, tortured, wounded the body of his family, all of them laying in the land of Taf, their heads separated, the enemies have slaughtered our children. وأخبر جدنا أننا أسرنا وبعد الأسر يا جدا سبينا. Inform our grandfather that we were taken captive, driven like prisoners. humiliated. They say in accounts, when Ahlul Bayt were being driven into Kufa, the people gathered in the city entrance to welcome them. What welcoming? They all wanted to see who were these enemies of Islam that had rebelled and were defeated. When they saw them enter, some of them shocked said, the head of the men I see on spears are the same beloved of our prophets. These women that I see are the same family of the prophet. Are these the rebels? Are these enemies? ورحتك يا رسول الله أضحى عرايا بالتطوف مسلبين. O Prophet, the bodies of your family were taken uncovered. Their goods are looted. وقد ذبحوا الحسين ولم يراعوا جنابك يا رسول الله فينا. These enemies attacked our beloved Hussein as the beasts as they are, slaughtering him. They did not consider our relationship with you. فلو نظرت عيونك للأسارى على أخطاب الجمال محملين. Ya Rasulullah, perhaps from where you were standing, you could observe as we were taken as hostages, ill-treated. We were forced to sit on the bare back of the camels. Rasulullah, بعد الصون صارت عيون الناس ناظرة إلينا. O Rasulullah, after a lifetime of strict observation of hijab, the haunted eyes of the people stared at us without hesitation. The enemies made us victims of torture. على لعنة الله على القوم الظالمين وسيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون. Matam Hussein.
Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein. Sakina ki sada hai, अरे शाम वालों, अरे कूफे वालों, अरे शाम वालों, सकीना की सदा है, अरे शाम वालों, कफन बाबा को दे दो, अरे शाम वालों, अरे ओ शाम वालों, अरे ओ कूफे वालों, मेरे प्यारे जो अम्मू आज होते, कभी ना इस कदर मजबूर होते, गदाई करके लाते मगर तुमसे न कहते, अरे ओ शाम वालों, कफन बाबा को दे दो, अरे ओ शाम वालों, अरे ओ शाम वालों, अरे ओ कूफे वालों, चचा का सर ये नेज़े से हटा दो, सरे शबीर पे पर्दा उड़ा दो, ये गम कितना बड़ा है, मेरी माँ बेरिदा है, अरे ओ شام والو کفن بابا کو دے دو ارے شام والو ارے شام والو ارے کوفے والو میں خاتون جنا کا آئینہ ہوں رسن بستا اسیر و بے ردا ہوں میری جانب نہ دیکھو میرا کرتا پھٹا ہے ارے شام والو کفن بابا کو دے دو ارے شام والو ارے شام والو ارے کوفے والو وہ سینہ میرے بابا کا کہاں ہے سنا ہے برسر دیگ تپا ہے نہیں ہائے وہ سینہ کہاں سوئے سکینہ رے شام والو کفن بابا کو دے دو ارے شام والو ارے شام والو ارے کوفے والو یتیموں کو ستانا کب رواں ہے دکھے دل کو دکھانا کب رواں ہے ستم جو چاہے کر لو مگر ایک کام کر دو ارے شام والو کفن بابا کو دے دو ارے شام والو ارے شام والو ارے کوفے والو رہائی کی تمنا مر چکی ہے یہ زندہ میری منزل آخری ہے مگر بابا سے کہنا ابا نا شام آنا رے شام والو ارے شام والو یا حسین یا حسین
یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین اے آن محمد 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 محمد اے آن محمد اے آن محمد شبیر کا تم صدقہ ہو اب خیمے میں بیٹا تم لوٹ کر نانا اے آن محمد اے آن محمد اے آن اے آن محمد اے آن محمد ہے ماں کو یقین تم ماں کی بات رکھو گے یہ یاد رہے خیموں میں پیاسے بچے دریا پہ اگر جانا ہو سحروز کے پیاسوں تم پیاس نہ بجھانا اے آن و محمد اے آن محمد ہر حال میں تم پر لازم ہے شکر خدا کا اے شہزادوں ہے صبر تمہارا ورثہ فرزند ہو تم زینب کے شکوہ نہیں کرنا جب زخم کوئی کھانا اے آن و محمد محمد اے آن و محمد جب سانس تمہاری بچوں ہو کھڑنے والی اس وقت سرہانے آئے گی مادر میری دل کی یہ میرے خواہش ہے اس دم میری ماں سے زخموں کو تم چھپانا اے آن و محمد اے آن و محمد جب لاش اٹھا کر خیمے میں لائے سرور زینب یہ بولی اشکوں کو اپنے چھپا کر میں بھی نہ تمہیں روؤں گی اور میرے لیے بھی آنسو نہ تم بہانا اے آن و محمد اے آن و محمد اے آن و محمد تعظیم کی خاطر کیوں اٹھتے نہیں اب بیٹا دیکھو تو سرہانے آئے ہیں میرے بھیا جاگو میرے شہزادوں کیا بھول گئے ہو قدموں پہ سر جھکانا اے آن و محمد اے آن و محمد
بر محمد و آل محمد صلوات اللہ
انشاءاللہ بسم اللہ
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمد رسول الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله. أشهد أن عليا ولي الله. أشهد أن عليا حجة الله. حي على الصلاة. حي على الصلاة. حي على الفلاح. حي على الفلاح. حي على خير العمل. حي على خير العمل. الله أكبر الله أكبر. لا إله إلا الله. لا